So going live on YouTube right now, and I will kickstart us again. So apologies for the delay with this, ladies and gents. We'll give people a chance to actually be able to tune in now onto YouTube. So my sincerest apologies. Unfortunately, technology has a way of making it a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. So yes, so thank you very much for taking the time and actually joining us today on the Katana Property Channel. Today we're going to be talking about my 10 biggest mistakes and lessons taken from investing in property, the challenges therein, the things that have gone wrong, and how you can make sure that when you apply those to your property business, you don't go through the same mistakes as us. Now, it's really interesting. We've seen a lot of media around the property training industry lately, and it's quite fascinating. So hopefully you guys get a lot of value from the session. And you enjoy it. But let me first of all kick off with saying thank you very much for taking the time to join us this evening. And secondly, and much more importantly, you should commend yourself for doing what 99% of the world refuses to do and actually investing your time in yourself. So big kudos for you. Very cool to have you guys on for this. So as I was saying, the 10 biggest challenges that I faced, I'm going to give you the brief synopsis, and then I'm actually going to work through each one of them and tell you a story or two, which I love doing. So the first one is something called shiny penny. So this is the art of distraction. Okay, and it's something that has happened to me a lot in my early days. Second one is comparing yourself to others, comparing your property journey. Bearing in mind your property journey, it's called your property journey, not somebody else's property journey. So we all have a knack of comparing ourselves to others in the hope that that actually gives us some fulfillment and help. The problem is we don't do so fairly, and I'll come into that a little bit more later. Next is not rewarding yourself. Okay, so I did a lot of this in my early days where I wasn't rewarding myself while I was managing to build a portfolio. And again, it's something you need to make sure you do more of, is make sure you reward yourself. Then it is essentially tenacity and the ability to keep going in the face of adversity. You'll often hear stories from very successful entrepreneurs and business owners and the like, where they talk about the challenges that they've faced. And if you listen to some of these challenges that some of these guys have faced, it is harrowing. I literally, one of our mentorship students posted a post of Elon Musk onto our Facebook mentorship group today. And as part of that, Elon Musk was talking about his, like the fact that he's made a lot of mistakes and he's had a lot of hardship. But his hardest decision was when he had to make a decision. So he had 30 to 40 million left in the bank. Which for him is obviously a small amount of money for what he was doing because he was self-funding a lot of his projects. And he had SpaceX and Tesla. And he had to make a decision as to either you fund one, but the other one was guaranteed to die, or you fund both of them, but there's a reasonable chance that both will die and you just lose all your money. So he ended up backing both. Unfortunately for him, obviously, everything came through because that's how it works. I mean, you put yourself out there and you keep fighting and it'll work. It was a fascinating little video. And hopefully Kathy will be able to share that link at some point closer to the end of this because I thought it was brilliant. It'll be good to have this in the chat for you guys as well. Then the next one is keeping track of finances. It's very easy to get blindsided by not looking at the maths, not looking at the numbers, not looking at your financials. So that's a big one. Then there is over leveraging. So building your portfolio, borrowing more money from investors than you actually have in equity. It's a really big one that's had a massive impact on us. And we essentially were unaware of the fact that this was a thing until we were in it with both feet. And now, fortunately, we're most of the way back out. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. Next is expanding your portfolio too quickly. So growing too quickly. That is a big challenge for a lot of people is they believe property is get rich quick, which it's not. Okay, and I tell you this from personal experience, it's not. And again, I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. Then it basically trying to run multiple businesses, do multiple things all at the same time, which can be very stressful and very trying on your energy, on your life. And also, there's a great proverb that was given to me by my business coach, a chap called Kane Minkus, who's a wonderful human being. I absolutely love him. Him and his wife, Alessia, they've done wonders for our businesses. And he always said to me, he said, look, you can't take off two planes at the same time. And I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. So it was really interesting, that one. Then next is how we lost over £100,000 by launching a business that didn't make sense to launch. And we were in no fit position to be launching that business. So I'm going to teach you guys how to lose £100,000, or better yet, I'll teach you how not to lose £100,000. If you're okay with me teaching you how not to lose £100,000, please pop it into the chat box. Thank you, Kathy. That's the little link of the video that I was talking about a minute ago. It was amazing. Certainly worth a watch. The guy's my hero. Like, he genuinely is my real life hero. So the fact that he's South African and an engineer, and the fact that he's, you know, tenacious and just gets shit done, I love it. And then last but not least is all around mentorship, which is a huge thing for me. You're seeing a lot of it in the press and media at the minute. Unfortunately, not all mentors are scrupulous and, you know, try and do things that's right by their mentees and their students. Some of them do stuff based on sort of their estimates of what works for them as opposed to what works for the mentee. So I'm going to be walking through a little bit on that. And then finally, we're going to be wrapping up with giving you guys some exercises to take away on what you can do to make sure you do not make the same mistakes, and also to make sure that you get the most value from the mistakes that you have made. Because I can categorically guarantee you that all of you have made some mistakes at some point, whether it's in life, whether it's in property, whether it's in business. And it's knowing which ones to actually look at and how to be able to assess those to get the most value from those mistakes, because they're made. You might as well get the most value. Okay, so I'm going to kick off. Sorry, here's my list. I've got a list of everything I wanted to cover. So I'm going to kick off with the shiny penny syndrome. Okay, now this is a really interesting one. So I started my property training, so probably best part of a decade ago, probably 7-8 years. Myself and Tara, I started going through property education 7, 8, 9 years ago, somewhere around there. And the education company I went with, they did a good job for educating. I found them a little wanting when it comes to mentorship, but fortunately I found a couple of good mentors as part of my journey. And as part of what they taught was they said, okay, great. So here's some education on some buy-to-lets. And I was like, that sounds amazing. Okay, so I ended up attending the buy-to-let training, got loads of value. And then they said, okay, here's some information on HMOs. Here's some information on deal sourcing, so HMOs is shared housing. So think of student accommodation where you rent it out by the room. Okay, and then they said, here's some information on sourcing, where you essentially become a deal broker, where you negotiate a deal with somebody, find a buyer, connect the two, make a sourcing fee in the middle. It's free money. So we were learning all of these new strategies, you know, social housing, and there's so many strategies and stuff out there. And the problem with doing that is at some point you sit there and go, okay, now I don't know which one I want to do. So I started doing the basics. I started doing the buy-to-lets, and myself and my wife, we first buddied up together. That's how we started this gig. And we've decided that we're going to start our property journey over in Grimsby, of all places, Grimsby. So we were up in Grimsby. We went up there a few times. The clue's in the name. Grimsby has some grim areas, but at the same time, Grimsby has some lovely areas. I actually really enjoyed going to Grimsby. Myself and my wife, we'd make a good weekend of it. We'd hang out in a hotel. You know, we go out for nice dinners and stuff like that to make it worth it. And as part of us being up there, we found it really, really difficult because it's a long drive. I'm based in Kent. You're talking like 5-6 hours travel each way. And you go up there for a weekend and, you know, all of that kind of fun stuff. It was tough. So we obviously decided at some point, okay, this isn't working for us. And then I said, okay, cool. Well, why don't I just find another area? We ended up bouncing around 2 or 3 areas. And eventually my wife said, look, unless you can make up your mind, I can't work with you, which was fair because I'm a bit all over the place. It's who I've always been. So I was bouncing around areas, and eventually I said, okay, well, I'm going to settle here. She's like, look, you just do the property thing. It's too stressful for me. I'm going to go do my own thing, which is cool. And to be honest, I think it's worked out for the best that way. So I started working with a friend of mine, Kevin, and then we started working in Derby. And after viewing loads of houses, doing loads of legwork, and not finding a single deal, eventually I said, okay, well, the buy-to-let thing's too hard. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this. Now, this is the old adage. There's an easier way. Okay. So I decided that I was going to do something called rent-to-rent, which is basically subletting. So you take somebody's house, you rent it off of them, and then you rent it out by the room. Now, I understand that there's a lot of ethics behind it and making sure you do it legitimately. And, you know, there's mortgage fraud. There's all sorts of stuff to consider. So what I did is I took existing HMOs, so HMOs that were licensed and running and operating as HMOs that were in disrepair and a bit tired. I put a little bit of money in, I put a bit of management in, and then I'd make the markup on the rent, which worked out really well. Landlords were happy. I was happy. And then after I was doing that, then I got sick and tired of that. Then I jumped over to something else. And then I jumped over to something else. And then I jumped over to something else. And eventually I ended up going back to buy-to-lets because my biggest realization was all of this time I spent fart-arsing around chasing this silver penny, the silver bullet, okay, is the term, the silver bullet to property to make me rich overnight. All the time I chased that, nothing happened, which is interesting. Because if I take a look now, my best performing assets, my best performing things within my life, within property business, are simply doing the basic things. Okay. And property is slow, like investing in buy-to-lets, investing in HMO. It's all very slow and it's slow money. But because it's slow, that's what makes it so good. That's what makes it so secure. But for me, I wanted to sort of bounce around. And the problem is when you start bouncing around, it's often because you have a lack of direction. Okay. And the thing that I took from that is, or my biggest lesson that I took from that is that you have to stay close to the people who are doing successfully and doing well within the industry. Because if you stick with them and you work with them and you mimic them and you do what they're doing, okay, it keeps you on a straight and narrow path. It makes things much simpler for you to be able to do and actually achieve. Okay, so the term here is keeping close to the fire. Now, we say it to our mentorship students all the time, and I'll say it to you guys all the time. The way to be successful in property is make sure you spend time with people who are being successful in property, whether that's watching videos, whether that's attending seminars, whether that's turning up at webinars or whatever. Like, just make sure you are spending your time around those people, and inevitably the learning and the understanding and the thinking and the beliefs and the mindset will be embedded within you, and your results will start to improve as part of that. Okay, so number one, the biggest lesson I've taken from that is just keep close to the fire. Now, number two, and this is a really interesting one. So this one is called the comparison. Okay, so let me give you guys some interesting stats. So I'm going to do some flip chart work here. I hope you don't mind. So if you take a look right now, the UK population, okay, I believe is give or take around 63 million. Yeah, last time I checked, I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around 63 million. Now, taking a look at the Office of National Statistics, there is 450,000 property investors. Okay, 450,000 property investors. So that equates to like a 0.something%, 0.3% or something like that, of the people in the UK as property investors. So 67.9. Lovely. Thank you, Mo. Okay, so 68. Give or take. Okay, so if you take a look, that's the number of property investors in the UK. Now, as a percentage, anybody want to tell me what that is as a percentage? Kevin, have you got your calculator to hand? I'm going to do some interesting stuff here, which blew me away, by the way. And there's a reason I'm doing this. It's going to lead somewhere. So, what if you can do 450 divided by 6800, so 68,000. What's the result? Okay, so I'm probably a little bit out there. I think it's 0.06%. Yeah, but you got to times it by 100 to get your percentage. So it's 0.06%. Okay, give or take. 0.6%. So my math's slightly out. 0.6%. I'm not here as a mathematician, let me be clear. I'm here as a property guy. Okay, so that means you're in the 0.5% of the 0.5% of the country if you're a property investor. Now, an overwhelming, I think it was something 90-something% of these people only own one investment property. Okay, and this is all from the Office of National Statistics. Please feel free to research. It's fascinating stuff. Blew me away. Okay, so on average, so the average UK property investor only owns one investment house. Okay, plus their own home. So that's the average UK property investor. Now, this is where it starts to get even more interesting. Okay, because then that means out of those that are actually owning multiple properties, okay, you'll probably have, give or take, 5 to 10%, give or take. Okay, have multiple properties, which means 5 to 10% of that. So if we go 10%, let's be giving, okay, which means that's 0.06. So that's less than 0.1% of all people in the UK, own multiple properties. So as soon as you have multiple investment properties, you're in the 0.06% of the country, give or take. Okay, obviously don't quote me on the figures, because the whole idea is you just start to understand the gravity of it. And something that I made the mistake of when I was very first starting to invest is I was constantly comparing myself to the people that I was seeing on the Facebook forums and all over, having these brilliant portfolios, doing these amazing things in property. And that's who I compared myself against it. And if you think about it, if you're going to compare yourself against anybody, you have to do it fairly. Okay, like with everything else in life, you have to be fair on yourself. Comparing yourself to the people that are doing all of these amazing things is the same as doing 100-meter race. Okay, 100-meter race with what's his name? Usain Bolt, as an example. 100-meter race with Usain Bolt, and he beats you, and you're pissed off because he beats you. You can't do that. That's not how this works. So you have to compare yourself as an average. How are you doing compared to everybody? Now, please understand that almost everybody either doesn't invest or has a very small portfolio. Therefore, if you compare yourself like that and you say, well, actually, I've got 2 houses and it's taken me 5 years to do it, you're better than the average. You've already done what very, very few people have done. And that's a big, big, big deal. Now, what I was doing is I was seeing everyone on the forums and they were doing all of these amazing things and they've got all these properties and it's brilliant. And then I had conversations with them. And then I realized Facebook is a lot of smoke and mirrors, guys. Okay, because it's like, as an example, this studio. Okay, it's like the studio. What you are seeing is the edge of the canvas to the edge of the canvas. Okay, that is it. That's what Facebook is. It focuses on what people want you to focus on. Now, if you were to see the office space that we're in, like we got, it's a mess. We got stuff all over the place. But the fact is, it doesn't matter because we are only showing you what we want to show you. Okay, that is how Facebook works. That's how social media works. And I was seeing people with all this amazing property success, and I was like, I want to be like them. But when you look under the hood, you start to realize that it's not all like, gold glasses and sunshine and rainbows and stuff. It's not like that. So I made it a point that everything we do, I try to be very frank and honest. You're going to notice I'm going to tell you some pretty gnarly stories about when shit went wrong for us. And sorry for swearing if you're sensitive ears. But when stuff went wrong for us, I'm going to be talking about that because it's important that you guys realize that there's genuineness, there's genuine people within this whole industry that are here to be able to work with you and help you. So what I started to do is instead of comparing myself to others, all I did is I started comparing myself to myself. Because the only person you're in a race with, and I mean, it's literally the only person, is yourself. Am I better than I was yesterday? That's the only question you have to ask yourself. Am I further down the path? Have I taken value from yesterday that has furthered me down my journey to success? That is it. That's the only question you need to ask yourself. Okay? And it's a good question. So the problem with it, if you don't do that, is you tend to struggle with motivation. And it happens all the time. I see it all the time, including with some of our mentorship students. It's a reoccurring conversation of, yeah, but this person's doing that and that person's doing that. It's like, I don't care. You're not them. You started with a very different circumstance. You have different money in the bank. You have different connections. You have different relationships. You have different base skills and knowledge. Like the only person you can compare with is yourself. So that was a big win for me. Then number 3 was all around rewarding myself. Now I'm a typical engineer. I strive for perfection. Okay, I always have and I always will. And I've always tried to push the envelope of trying to make things perfect. Now, unfortunately, at the same time, I realized that there's no such thing as perfection. Perfection is bullshit. The thing that makes things perfect is what makes them imperfect. Okay, the imperfections of something is what makes it perfect. And the knowledge that there's no such thing as perfect is an understanding that what I was doing a lot of the time was I was procrastinating and creating a circumstance in which I'm unlikely to be able to get a result. It's a form of procrastination. It's a form of putting things off. So what I would end up doing is I would keep moving the goalposts and be like, well, this isn't quite perfect. This isn't quite perfect. Oh, well, I've bought this house. Yeah, but it's not quite what I wanted here because of this. And I've now got 5 houses. Yeah, but I still want that. And I want this project and I want this commercial unit. And there was this constant moving of the goalposts. And although you might go, yeah, but that enables you to succeed more, please understand there's only one thing that happens when you do this. Okay, is you never take stock of the journey. You never take the value of the journey, which defeats the whole bloody point. Let me be honest with you guys, as I always try to be anyway. Okay, when you get to financial freedom, I promise you, you're not going to sit there and go, woohoo, it's the best day of my life. Everything's going to change from here. What you end up doing is going, okay, what's next? Okay, you might give up your day job, but you don't stop working. It's not going to happen. You're still going to do something because you have to pass your day. You have to do something that gives you a sense of value. So what I was noticing is I was achieving all these milestones, and every time I look back, I go, "Oh yeah, that was really cool," but I still want to do this. That I never actually valued what I was doing. I never actually took stock. And what you end up doing is you end up getting demotivated because you never feel like you've achieved what you want to achieve, because it's impossible, because you keep moving that further and further out. Okay, it's like running a 100-meter race, and when you're 5 meters from the line, somebody moves it back another 10 meters and another 10 meters and another 10 meters. You will never feel like you've run a full race. You will never feel like you've finished a certain element. So we create a rewards process as part of what we do, and it's something you want to do as well within your property journey. You need a reward sequence of rewards that you give yourself for hitting certain milestones. Okay, so I've booked this viewing day. Okay, so I've viewed 10 houses. Okay, so I've viewed 50 houses. I've got my first deal agreed. I've got my first refurbishment done. Whatever your milestones are, make sure you reward yourself for them, because simply by missing those rewards, you are going to demotivate yourself and make it more difficult for you to be able to achieve the results you want. Okay, so that was a big one, and I like that one a lot. Number 4, which is don't give up. And my biggest lesson. So I went, as I said to you earlier, I went through a property training company. Some of you may have been through them. I mean, they did well enough for me. You know, I've come out okay. I've come out smelling of roses in the end. It was a hard journey. I'm not going to, sugarcoat it for you. Property is not easy. It's simple. It's very simple, but it's not easy because it constantly tests you. Hey, Maureen, awesome to have you on. Thank you for joining. But yeah, so if I take a look, what ended up happening is the training company that I went through, their education was very simply view 40 houses, make 40 offers, and you're likely to get a deal. That's it. That's the model. And, in a whole, it's not necessarily a bad model, except it's very, very time consuming, and it's very emotionally draining. Okay. And for those of you that have been through similar trainings and educations, you'll be able to attest to this. A large portion of our mentorship students actually come from said training company. I won't mention who it is because it's not right or ethical. But a large percentage of our mentorship students come from there with the same hassle. Can't find any deals. I'm demotivated. I'm finding it really hard, etc., etc., etc. So after viewing 90 houses and making 90 offers and not getting a single deal, I remember I went home. So please understand the position I was in, as I was working permanent night shift. I was working anywhere between 10 and 12 hours, including travel time a day, as well as working weekends, most weekends. And it was exhausting, right? And I had to find time to be able to go and view houses. So the only time I could do it is at the end of my night shift. I would get in my car, and I worked in London. I live out in Kent. It was an hour and a half each way. And I'd get in my car and I'd drive up to Derby, where I was investing at the time. And then I'd park my car outside the first house. And then I'd have a bit of a nap for 1 or 2 hours, depending on how much time before my first viewing. Then I'd wake up and I'd go start my viewings. And I'd view 4, 5, 6 houses in a day, get back in my car, drive back down to my depot, sleep in my car for 3 or 4 hours, wake up, do my night shift, go home and sleep like a log. Okay. And I did that every single week. And I did that every week for months and months and months and months. I viewed over 90 houses. I was probably over 100 houses, and I made over 90 offers, easily over 90 offers, and I had nothing, like absolutely nothing to show for it. And I remember one day I came home and I threw my keys across the table at the end of my viewing fiasco of a trip, and I said to my wife, "This is bullshit. This property game is a lie." Now, some of you will attest to the fact that you will have had some experience in your life where things are not going as well as you'd like them to go. Okay, in any field. And you see other people succeeding, so you know it works, but in your head you're going, but it doesn't work. It's bullshit. It's a lie. They're obviously doing something that's lying or cheating because, it's not working. How could it not work for me, but it works for them? And I was having this whole internal dialogue thing, and, I threw my keys on the table and I said to my wife, "This property game is a lie. It's bullshit." And she said, "Look, what's the problem?" And I says, "Well, I feel like I'm looking at all of the wrong houses." Now, this is the moment I realized that my wife is smarter than me. Because she simply responded, "Well, why don't you just look at the right houses?" And it's really interesting because it's a very simple response, and it's very logical. It's brilliant. It literally changed the face of everything we do. And me being an engineer, I said, "Okay, well, how can I mimic that? How can I do that?" So I looked at the problem. I said, "Okay, well, what's an investment property? Okay, what are all the criteria? What's the numbers? What's the maths? What's this? What's that? Okay, let me reverse engineer that and only look at those properties and not look at the entire marketplace." And instead of us viewing 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 houses to get one deal, we then switched it down to now we're viewing between 5 and 15 houses to get on average one deal. So you get on average one deal every 5 to 15 viewings. Okay, obviously area dependent, criteria dependent, but this is how it works. And we did that purely because we created that whole system, reverse engineered it, put it into a spreadsheet. Now it's into an online platform, which you guys will all hear about. Any of you that attend our 3-day training, which is coming up next weekend, we go through it. It's amazing. It's brilliant. And that enables you to be able to find a lot more deals with a lot less time, effort, hassle, money, etc. So the biggest thing that I took, or the biggest lesson I took from this experience, is just don't give up. Like the stuff that we've gone through over the last year. So 2019 was a diabolical year for us. We tried to bring on some business partners. Unfortunately, we had a misalignment of our values and what we were looking to achieve. And the whole thing fell apart in a hideous style. And we've had to buy the business partners out of the business. And it's like with every divorce, it's very messy, very ugly, very emotionally charged. And it's been very, very stressful. And the interesting thing is, out of all of that, I had a lot of people saying to me, look, just give up, just pack it up. Don't worry about it. You can do something else. You're a smart guy. You'll be okay. And I had a lot of that. And my response was always the same. If I give up now, I will always ask what if. And that would eat me to my dying days, right? I couldn't go through the rest of my life saying what if. I just couldn't do it. And it might be who I am. It might be just my beliefs and my feelings, but I don't have a quit button. I just don't have a quit button. So the biggest lesson I can give you there is just don't give up. When shit gets tough, it gets tough for a reason. It's because there's valuable learnings, valuable lessons to take from that time to strengthen you for later on when you're busy building the success that you should be building. Okay. Next one is keeping track of finances. So as part of last year, we were busy building the portfolio and everything was going well. I mean, we've transacted on over 100 transactions, many of which are us purchasing, some of which are us sourcing as well. We had 36 transactions all happening at the same time in 2017, I think it was 2018. So like we've had a busy few years. And as part of doing that, you end up building this whole portfolio, and it was really good. I mean, we built a multi-million-pound portfolio in just a few years, and it was excellent. I was having a great time. But the thing that, and it'll be a common occurrence for many of you, I'm sure, the thing that caught me out is the fact that nobody was watching the pounds and pennies and cents within the portfolio. So we knew all the money going in and out in terms of acquiring and, financing and all that stuff, but it's just actually monitoring the portfolio, what it's doing. Have you got the right letting agent? Are you being stiffed on the maintenance costs? Are the tenants good tenants? Basically, are you taking care of everything and making sure everything is giving you the best possible results? And it's really interesting because in my head, I'm going, well, we're doing a lot of stuff. We've got a large portfolio. Everything must be okay. We bought it right. Everything must be okay. But there's a certain element of management that comes with that. And it's something that I completely neglected, as did some of our other partners. We never really thought about it because we were so busy with everything else, so busy scaling up, so busy buying properties that we completely missed the fact that there's the entire fundamental financials at the back end. And at some point, we finally got to a point where we had to pull everything apart and take a look. And because of our cost of finance and some other costs, we were actually negatively cash flowing in the portfolio. So we had to basically strip back, make sure we had the best insurance deals, make sure we had the best letting agents, sorted out all the maintenance issues. So we stripped everything right back to its core. And all of a sudden, the portfolio is now very profitable. Okay, but all of that time, how much money did we lose because we are so focused on everything on the front end and not enough on the back end? Okay, so you've got to make sure that essentially you keep track of all of the finances across the board, whether that's getting a bookkeeper or whatever, but get somebody who enjoys that stuff. Okay, because you get the deal makers, you get the supporters, you get the people who want to go and hustle and build relationships and all of that stuff. But you need to get the person who enjoys going through the numbers, enjoys the back office, enjoys making sure things right and trying to organize the savings. Okay, so that was another big learning, which was very cool. Then over leverage. Now, this was another big learning of ours. So as part of what we got taught when we first came through, so I talk about I'm talking about myself and Taro, so my Japanese counterpart. I don't know if you guys can see him particularly well. You guys, I mean, just Google Katana Group, Katana Training, and you'll see him. He's everywhere, and he's amazing. Like I absolutely adore Taro. And as part of what we got taught when we came through his training company is just borrow the money, use it to build portfolios, and at some point in the future, you can refinance or sell and pay them back, and you'll be fine. Okay, nobody really talked to us about the fundamentals around raising finance. And between myself and Taro, we raised 2.5, maybe 3 million in the last few years, and it's been a hell of a journey. Had a whale of a time raising a bundle of finance, building a lot of relationships, helping people earn some extra money on their money, like the whole thing. It's been amazing, and I genuinely had a great time. The thing that we didn't realize, the fact that if you're buying something like a HMO, okay, which is the shared housing thing I was telling you about earlier, if you buy a HMO, you tend to have more money invested in the house, okay, because of your extra outgoings, your extra costs. Where you're buying is a much more prime area, like a whole bunch of stuff. So you tend to have more money invested in those deals, okay, than you actually have in equity. Now, our original plan was we're going to go buy 40 HMOs, and that's it. Then we're going to live off the cash flow and refinance, do whatever else we need to do to pay our investors back later. That was the model. That was literally the model. And our very first AGM, that was it. So we built up a nice large portfolio of HMOs, but the problem is our investor money, okay, that we had in that portfolio was more than we had in equity. Okay, and this is called over leveraging. So where you owe more money than you have in asset value. So essentially the business on a balance sheet basis was negative, okay, which is a terrible position to be in. It's not the position you want to be in for your portfolio. So what ended up happening is we got to a point where we had investors saying, hey, look, I want my money back. And we're going, all right, okay, how do we do this? So as part of what we did, we had to originally, and I'll just talk frankly with you guys, because this is part of my journey and I think it's valuable. So we did, we borrowed from Peter to pay Paul. Like we did a lot of that money shuffling thing for a while, and it worked okay. Okay, selling projects, doing some deal sourcing, and doing some other stuff to raise finance in the background and starting to pay the investors back. But at some point, the demand for the money become higher than the ability for us to be able to maintain that. Okay, and it became a mess. So we've had to essentially scale up what we're doing in terms of revenue generation across all the businesses just to pay those investors back. And I mean, it's going swimmingly well now, but I can tell you what, at some point, like both myself and Taro were like, this is hideous. It was honestly one of the most stressful and horrendous times of my life going through that within the business. It was genuinely, like I suppose if I could sum it up, I would say I would not even wish that on my worst enemy. It was beyond stressful. And it put both myself and Taro in a very, very bad mental state. And obviously you go through all this stuff and this forms part of the learnings. So in terms of what we did there and how we've managed to get our way out of it and what we do, the biggest, and I mean literally the single biggest learning I've taken from the whole thing is do not over leverage. Okay, because if all hell breaks loose and you find yourself in a position where people will want their money back and everything's going manically wrong, you want to be in a position where you can say, okay, look, I'll just sell everything off, you can get your money back, or I'll sell off 80% of the portfolio or whatever, and you can get your money back, and then everyone's okay. We still leave with some houses, you leave with your money, and then everyone's moving forward. And this actually forms why I get mentorship students to invest in buy-to-lets to start off with, as opposed to HMOs, because you don't leave as much money invested. Okay, so do not over leverage. It's a big one. It's a big one. Hey, Clive, awesome to have you on the call, buddy. Thank you for joining the stream. Guys, if you're liking the content and you're getting some value, please do me a favor. Please just give us a like, a thumbs up, and share us and, comment and whatnot, just so other people get to see the stream. I want to try and get this information out as much as possible and sort of start to impact more people in building their portfolio. So please do, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channels, join up Katana Property group Facebook page or Katana Property Channel Facebook group. Please do. Lovely. We're getting some likes. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Please keep it coming. Please do share. It's important that we get this stuff out there because I want to help other people not go through the same mistakes as us. It's been a horrendous journey, but the value out the back of it's been so much worth it. But I don't see other people need to go through the same crap to get the same value, if that makes sense. So hopefully us imparting this helps you not have to go through that. Okay. Awesome. Next one is expanding the portfolio too quick. Now, this is a really interesting one, and it sort of ties back to the one I was saying earlier where it comes down to managing your finances. So if you think, have you ever had that experience that there's something you're trying to say, and there's a word, and your brain is not letting you think of the word. Okay, it's called a brain fart. That's what I call it. It's like you're talking and then the word falls out the back of your head, and that's it. You can't think of the word. You're going, it's right on the, it's the tip of my tongue. I got the word right there. I can't get it out. Okay, and it's a really sucky experience having that whole, it's stressful, right? It's stressful having that thing where you go, I know there's something and I can't think of it. Same as like when you walk in a room and you forgot why you walked in the room, and you're like, oh, there's that thing that I need to do, and it's important, and I can't remember. Or when you're having like that experience. Now, when you're investing in property, if you do not have an entire compiled list of everything you need to be doing step by step, good stuff for joining us, Barnes. Thanks for joining, buddy. School of Life experience, 100%, Gabrielle, 100%. And, I was constantly having that experience when you're investing in property. There's always this resounding thought in your head of, there's something I'm missing. Okay, it can't be this slow. Because who's actually invested in property and bought property before? Out of interest, if you have, give me a yes in the chat box just so we can check who's in the stream. But if you have, then you'll know like property investing is very slow. From point of getting your offer accepted, you're talking 8 to 12 weeks to complete in the purchase, and you're talking 6 to 8 weeks for the refurb, and then you're talking another 6 months for the refinance. Like, it's slow. Like, property is slow, and because it's slow, you're constantly sitting there going, "There's something I need to do." Now, that sounds okay because you can sit there and you can logically think out whatever it is you need to do for 1 or 2 or 3 projects. I'm telling you now, as soon as you go above 4, the stress level, it literally mounts up beyond what you'd possibly believe. And all of a sudden, like I said, we had 36 deals going through at the same time. And you have this constant stress where you're struggling to sleep. All day you're not really present. It's a big complaint of my wife for many years, is I wasn't always present. Like, I'd be sitting there, I'd be there in person, but my head would be thinking about other stuff. And this is a common thing. And this is what happens when you try and build your portfolio too quickly, is you put yourself in a position that you're under so much immense stress, not because of the difficulty, but because of the mental load. Okay, the mental load. And the mental load is mega. I had a massive mental load for this. And eventually I came to a realization of, look, it is better to build your portfolio, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses a year, nice and steady, nice and easy. Don't go crazy. Don't try and blow anyone's mind, because property is not get rich quick. Okay, and if you got a pen and paper or whatever, I'd urge you to write this down. Like, property is not get rich quick. It is get rich for sure. Okay, that's how it works. It is not get rich quick. It is get rich for sure. So that is lesson number 7, is do not try and expand too quickly. You're not going to take over the world. You are not going to be the biggest property developer, and you're not going to be financially free in 12 months. Okay, I'll just tell you this now. It takes time. What you're trying to do is be in the smallest percentage of people in the entire country. Okay, and bear in mind, this isn't even the figure for financially free. This is just for people who have multiple investment properties. When you go financially free, it's 0.0000000 something. Okay, when you're trying to do that, don't expect it's going to happen overnight. Allow yourself time. Okay, you are human. Okay, take it on board. Okay, so that was number 7. Now, number 8. Now, this actually comes into business. So as part of us building the portfolio, when we were trying to expand, we said, okay, so we're doing this property thing good, like we're doing well here. Let's launch this training business. Okay. And we're doing this training thing good. We've got like 130 mentorship students, things are going really well, loads of them financially free. We're really happy. Let's do the sourcing business. Okay. Oh, so the sourcing business seems to be going okay. It's not amazing, but it's going okay. We're making some money. We're having a good time. Okay. Why don't we start a maintenance business? And why don't we start a refurbishment business? And why don't we look into starting a bridging finance business? And all of a sudden, at some point, we ended up with 7 or 8 different businesses. Okay, all functioning and operating at the same time. But the problem is that it was all the same team of people. And it's really difficult, because to make a business successful, you actually need to devote time to that one business. To make several businesses successful, you need several people to devote individual time to those businesses to make them successful. To make several businesses successful is not done by a handful of people trying to run all of them at the same time and running around like headless chickens and hoping it works. And as part of what we did there, this is where the proverb from my business coach came in. He said, look, you cannot take off 2 planes at once. You just can't take off 2 planes at once. It's just not possible. So what you have to do is get one plane up in the air, get it at cruising altitude, parachute down, and then you can go raise plane number 2. There's no way you're going to be able to do both at the same time. So as part of our realization is, look, focus on what's working. There's a term called your MVP. It's your most valuable, proprietary thing, most valuable player, most valuable whatever. Okay, but essentially you want to be focusing on the thing that makes you the best return until you can completely outsource and automate it. So you don't have to do anything and it continues to do its own thing. Okay, and that's where we were at with our portfolio, but we weren't there with any of the other businesses. Okay, so for me, the important thing for you is focus. Okay, so biggest lesson number 8 is focus. Just focus on one thing at a time. Get it done. Get it running. Get it outsourced. Get it leveraged. And only at that point do you say, okay, cool. Now let me see what else I can do because now I have my time back. Okay, very, very important is to focus. So that's number 8. Now, number 9. Okay, number 9, and this is an interesting one. So as part of one of the businesses we decided to launch, we said, okay, great. So we've got a whole bunch of mentorship students need refurbishments doing. We've got some contacts that are builders. Why don't we build a refurbishment company? Why don't we just launch our own refurbishment company? Sounds really simple, right? You're going, well, we've got the clients, we've got the refurbs, we've got everything lined up. All we have to do is just get somebody who does the work. Now, it's really interesting because I had no idea that running a refurbishment company is so much paperwork. So if there's any builders on the stream, you will know straight away. There is so much paperwork, so much project management, so much shit that you have to deal with from clients and from lenders and from it is a very stressful trade and very stressful industry. And we try to do everything on a dime. We said, okay, great. So let's do a really low cost for all of our mentorship students because I don't want them to feel stiff. The whole aim of this business is not to make money. The whole aim of this business is to give them a really good product for a really good price. And we make maybe a small little margin, 10% or something like that. I'm golden. Okay, we can run a business on that. And it's interesting because we ran this business for about 16 months. And in that 16 months, you'd have a lot of learnings, We try to compact a builder's learning who might work for 5-10 years as a builder before he branches out on his own firm, taking all those lessons. We try to condense that into one single month of, okay, great, we're ready. Let's go build our business. So what ended up happening is we'd have loads of errors. We'd have teams that would run away with materials. We had loads of crap. And because I didn't want to leave our mentorship students exposed, because that's not the right thing to do, is we try to cover as many of the costs as possible. Now, I won't say we covered all the costs because there was some stuff that I'm not so sure was down to us. But we did cover at least 95% of the costs, which you might go, okay, well, that's the right thing to do. The problem is that covering that and the mistakes and errors we made, we lost over £100,000 in the business. Okay, in 1 year, 100 grand, which is really interesting because the purpose of that business was to help us make a little bit of money, and it cost us 100,000 a year, and actually cost me a lot of relationships and a lot of friendships that will never ever come to light in the same way that it ever was. And it's a shame because my intentions the entire time was to get everybody something better for less. That was the whole gig the whole time. And unfortunately, and many of you will know this, when you try and break new ground, when you try and do things that are on a bigger level than what others expect from you, sometimes things don't work. And some people will say, okay, great, look, it's a mistake. It's all good. All is forgiven. Let's keep moving forward. We're still mates. And some people say, we're kind of okay. We can kind of live symbiotically, but the friendship's kind of gone. And it's really interesting because the biggest thing that I've taken out of this in terms of what you do is you need to trust but verify. Unfortunately, some of the team that we'd assembled, we'd hoped they could work to a certain level. It didn't work. It just didn't work. And the level that everyone was working to was just not quite where we needed everything to be. And there was some extra maintenance costs, extra, going back to jobs and stuff. And it cost us through the nose. So the biggest tip that I can give you, or the biggest lesson that I learned from losing this 100 grand, it was a very expensive mistake, is trust but verify. Okay. And write that shit down. I promise you that has been my biggest learning when it comes to that, is just trust but verify. Okay, you can take anybody on their word and say, okay, brilliant, I completely trust you. Let me just check out some of your work. Let's just see what you've done before. Trust but verify. Okay, you can always trust people, but just verify that what they're saying is 100% accurate. And if you start to get that gut feeling, something doesn't quite feel right, this doesn't quite feel like what I want, just pull out straight away. Okay, then it obviously is not meant to be. Okay, that's a big one, trust but verify. Okay. Now, number 10, we are onto the final one. Okay, onto the final one. And this is all around how you can manage to build your portfolio quicker. And it's really interesting. You guys understand that you can pretty much Google and find all the information about how to invest in property and everything you need to find online. I mean, all of our YouTube videos, we've got so much content and information in here. You can find pretty much anything you need anywhere you go. Okay, that's a fact. I'm presuming you guys are all okay with that. Let me just check in. Just give me a yes if you understand that and believe that and that's true, or if no, if you don't believe that's true. I'm genuinely curious to see what you guys' responses are. And there's quite a few of you guys on, so let's sort of keep the dialogue going if we can. Okay, but a lot of people seem to think that, all the information's out there, so why do I need to pay a mentor? Okay, the simple question is this: what do you do next? That's the question, right? Because you might have a bit of an idea, but do you know for sure, if you haven't done it before, do you know for sure that that is the right move? Do you know for sure that that is the right area? Do you know for sure that that is the right strategy for you? Do you know for sure that that is how you can get the most out of your money? Okay, and the answer is you don't. And although you might go, yeah, but I can figure my way out, that's fine. And you're welcome to. I'm not going to tell you that you have to. This is my lessons and my experiences. Okay, but from my experience, the thing that I've taken from this is, sure, you can figure your own way out and sure, you can find your way to that other side. But how much time, effort, and guaranteed money is that going to cost you? You get one deal go wrong. Like we had one business that went wrong, cost us 100 grand. We had one project go wrong that cost us well over 100 grand, about 140,000. Okay, so like, to be able to learn the mistakes the hard way for the sake of having an ego saying, yes, but I did it myself, I didn't need a mentor, blah, blah, blah. You're an idiot. Okay, and I'm sorry if that's not what you want to hear, but you're an idiot. Like you are literally wasting your time and money for the sake of saving a few quid now, but guaranteed to be spending significantly more. It just makes no sense to me. The whole purpose of a mentor, the whole premise of a mentor is to give you the guidance of what do you do next? How do you do it correctly? How do you avoid the pitfalls and mistakes because of their experiences? Okay, and how do you get to your end goal as quickly as possible? Now, I often use this because I think this is brilliant. So if you do a timeline, so most people who build their portfolios themselves without any assistance from any mentors or anything like that, okay, so this is basically years here. Okay, they might take, I don't know, 20 years to build a portfolio that gives them the financial income to be financially free. Okay, it's pretty standard, 10, 20, 30 years, something like that. So I'm just going to say 20 years as an example. Okay, now this is a typical investor's life. Okay, now what you do is if you implement a mentor, okay, so let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on and so forth, all the way down to 20, okay, in years. What a mentor does, okay, and I love this, and this is so true, and I found this so accurate in terms of everything that's happened in my life. Okay, what a mentor does is they collapse the time that it takes to do something. Okay, and it's not just the time they collapse, they also collapse the cost. Okay, because understand, with every year that goes by, it doesn't just cost you to be able to do the investments. It doesn't just cost you from the mistakes. It also costs you for lost opportunity. Because in these 18 years that happen all here, okay, in those 18 years, you could have been financially free. What could you have done with those 18 years differently if you were financially free, as opposed to you deciding that you want to schlep the whole thing out and work your bollocks off for 20 years? Now, that's the real cost. That's the cost that people don't tell you about. That's the cost that's not on the balance sheet. Okay, that's the important one. Okay, it is looking at, the term is opportunity cost. So what is your opportunity cost for not doing something? So we always urge people, look, get yourself a mentor. Like whether it's us or whether it's somebody else, I don't really mind. It doesn't really matter. You want to find a mentor that works for you. Okay, I mean, we actually do on our 3-day training, we do a whole how to find your mentor section. We've got 10 different criteria that we look for just to be able to select a good mentor. And if any of those are not there, then inevitably something goes wrong. And these are all 100% fact. This is how we operate. So in terms of myself, I try to do a lot of this stuff on my own right from the get-go. I try to do business on my own from the get-go. I lost so much money and time doing business on my own. It was ridiculous. And then I enlisted a business coach, which then, I mean, we've upscaled our business by at least 600%. It's insane, off the back of where we started with him. So in terms of my 10th and final learning, is there's so much information out there. Knowing what to do next is a real issue. It's not knowing what's out there. It's not being educated, because education means shit all if you don't know what to do. Okay, like if you're sitting on there and you go, I know where every street is in the entire country. But if you don't know where you want to go, there's no way you're going to be able to get there. Okay, and that's literally what a mentor does. They go, okay, this is the best way to go. It's like a sat nav. That's exactly what it is. So my 10th biggest learning, and by far my favorite learning, is just make sure you get yourself a mentor, whether that's in property, whether that's in business, whether that's in life, whether that's whatever it is. Like, always get a mentor. I've got a mentor for speaking, so public speaking, so what I do here. I've got a mentor for property. Got a mentor for business. Had a mentor for exercise. Haven't hung out with him for a while, in case you can't tell. So a little bit overweight, but I try and get myself around the right people at all costs and all time. And you might go, yeah, but it's so expensive. Bullshit. What's expensive is learning the mistake yourself. Okay, that's the expense, because it's lost opportunity, it's lost time, it's lost value. Okay, so highly, highly useful for you guys. I'm hoping you guys have had a lot of value from everything we've covered. If you have, and you haven't already, please give us a like or a check in the chat box. Please do share these streams. I want to get as much of this out as possible to save other people making the same mistakes. And please do leave your comments and keep your comments coming. Subscribe to our Katana Property group. It's a Facebook page, or Katana Property Channel, which is a YouTube channel as well as a Facebook group. So I'd love to have you guys on there. Please subscribe. We keep you up to date with loads of training information and other cool stuff in here as well. But I mean, this for me, this is the juicy stuff. This is where it's really at. Now, I've got a few exercises for you guys before we wrap up. So before we wrap up, I'm going to go through the exercise. But if you have any questions on anything I've discussed today or anything else, please do leave it in the chat box, and I will make sure I answer it. The whole beauty about what we're doing here is this is potentially a live coaching opportunity. So any questions you have, anything you want to know, I can actually answer it live. So you've got me, and I've done all right for myself in property and in life. Like, you've got me to be able to give you some guidance and help, like, live on these sessions. So please do leave your questions in there. Now, in terms of the exercise, I actually have 3 things for you to do. Okay, and that's it, just 3 things. So the first thing is I want you to list your 5 biggest mistakes that you've got in property or in life. Okay, your 5 biggest things where you go, oh, that was a mistake. Like, it was definitely a mistake. I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done this differently. Okay, list your 5 biggest mistakes you've either made in life or in property. If you're an experienced investor, then property. If you're not, if you're fairly new to property, then go with life. It's fine. Okay, so list out those 5, the 5 biggest. Okay, now please understand this list is for you and you alone. After it's done, stick it through a blender or whatever else so nobody else can read it. Okay, but it's the whole thing is for you. Okay, then the second thing I want you to do is I want you to actually list the actual learnings you took away from those mistakes. So the thing where you go, oh, okay, well, this is what I learned from that mistake. Okay, now please understand the learning is not don't do that again. Okay, the learning should be how can I do that better? Okay, ask yourself the question, how can I do that better, and making sure I haven't made the same mistake again. Okay, I don't know, the one that springs to my head, which I haven't done, let me be clear, but sleeping with my best friend's wife, I don't know, as an example. No, that was a horrendous mistake. Okay, so how could I still do what I wanted to do to maintain my relationships or friendships without doing something that's silly? Well, find somebody else. That's my learning. Find somebody else. Don't shit in your doorstep. But as an example, it's the only thing that popped in my head at the time. Hopefully that gave you guys a bit of a chuckle, because I'm laughing in my head quite a lot. So what's the actual learning that you take from each and every single one of those? And then the last one is I want you to write down how you would try and achieve the same goal. Okay, how you would try and achieve the same goal safely. Okay, so just write down, like, okay, if I were to actually want to invest in property, instead of me doing it this way, my biggest learning is what I need to do is actually get the right help, or get this or get that, or whatever it is, and write that down. Okay, and the reason you're doing this is instead of having the I can't do that, or that's not for me, which basically shuts off the part of your brain which enables you to be able to fix the problems and enables you to move forward and giving up. Okay, if you say how can I do that, what your brain then does is it clicks into a different gear where it goes into problem-solving mode, and it starts to look at different ways in which you can achieve the same thing in a better fashion. Now, I'm an engineer. That is literally my entire life, is to look at everything I do in exactly that way. Okay, and that's why I'm saying for you guys, because if this is not your general way of thinking, it is important that you do this. Right, I've got a lot of Facebook chat. Okay, I have a question, please. Is it a good time to buy a personal house? So Mohammed, thank you very much for the question. Really good question. Is it a good time to buy a personal house? Yes. So it depends what you're doing with it, but the government has just lowered the Bank of England base rates. Okay, so your mortgages should, in theory, be a lower cost. Also, we're just about to go into a property boom. By all accounts, speaking to mentorship students, they're all struggling to get viewings in because all estate agents are oversubscribed. So it's difficult to get viewings in, which means the demand is really high for investment properties right now, or for properties full stop, which means the market by definition has to only go one way, plus the extra 450 million stimulus into the country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, is the answer. Now is a brilliant time to buy. As a matter of fact, it is the best time to buy now. Okay. The best time ever to invest in property is now. Okay, because you can't invest yesterday and tomorrow never comes. So now, always. Okay, whether that's your own home or an investment property. Obviously, just don't make sure you over leverage yourself. Okay, just don't over leverage yourself, Mohammed. Providing you don't do that, you should be okay. Okay. So that's your three steps for your exercises as well, which is very cool. I just want to sort of close out with one or two other bits, guys. So please do like and share these videos if you're getting any value for it. And please do subscribe to our channels. I love to have you guys on. You will get alerts of more videos coming up, more interesting stuff that we cover. We're also running a live 3-day training absolutely for free. So an absolutely free live 3-day training next weekend. It runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Every single day. Sometimes we overrun a little bit because I talk too much, in case you can't tell. So 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Let me rephrase it. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I know some of you guys just had a heart attack. And wherever you are in the world, you can tune into this. This is literally for people global. We had people in from Bulgaria, from Spain, from Singapore, from Switzerland, from Sweden, all in for the last one. So like you can tune in from anywhere in the world, and it's absolutely free. We used to charge £1,000 for this training, and then we dropped the price a little bit. But yeah, so we're running it absolutely for free, primarily because of the whole Corona thing. It's all online. Our overhead costs are next to nothing. So we get to deliver world-class training to you guys for no cost whatsoever. In a minute, you're going to have a link pop up in the chat box. And that'll be on YouTube and on Facebook. All you have to do is click on the link, get yourself registered. It's just going to ask for some details, so your name, your email address, your phone number, and that's just so we can send all the information out to you and get in touch with you, give you any updates if we need to. So please do fill that in. Get yourself along. I can guarantee you're going to have an absolute whale of a time. Again, next Tuesday, we're going to be running another Facebook Live, exactly the same as what we're doing now, Facebook and YouTube Live. If you're catching this on a recording, please do share, please do like, please do comment. We do look at the comments afterwards, and we do answer any questions you guys have posted within that, so don't worry, it is monitored. And I think that pretty much brings me to the end of everything I wanted to cover. Okay, perfect. So Kathy's already put in the link. Oh, Kathy, it's got your photo on there. That's very cool. I don't know how you've managed to do that, but it's got your photo. So but yeah, so please do click on the link. Get yourself along to the 3-day training. I guarantee you categorically you're going to have a whale of a time. You'll get loads of high value. We're also giving away a 72-hour free coaching package. So a 72-hour kickstart program, absolutely for free for those that are attending. And it's genuine coaching. It's not a sales pitch. It's none of that. It's genuine coaching. We're going to give you 3 days worth of information and coaching and help and guidance. You get access to a free Facebook group, which is just for people looking to attend and stuff like that. It's very cool. We're upscaling how the whole business works to be able to impact more lives. And that pretty much brings us to the end. I don't think there's anything else I want to cover. But I hope you guys have had a good time. If you had a good time, please give me a yes in the chat box, or give me I've had a good time in the chat box, or it's been great, or whatever, just so I know you guys have had some value from everything we've covered. And likewise, if you're catching this on a recording, please do leave a message in the chat box. It just sort of keeps me pumped and keeps me wanting to do this. But yeah, it's been a great time. I've thoroughly enjoyed hanging out with you guys and chatting with you. I look forward to catching up with you guys next week. And for some of you guys on the 3-day training, I hope you have an amazing weekend and keep yourself safe with all this lockdown fiasco going on. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you, guys. Bye.